What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy, and we are here now for the second part of our plan for Jan. And today we're talking about defenders. So there's a lot to get through here because we have a lot of defenders currently on the books. We have a lot of defenders out of contract at the end of the season. And we need to make some improvements, don't we? Let's be right. And there could be a little bit of manoeuvring here. So bear with. Neaten it up and we'll go right wing backs first. For me, George Baldock is still our number one, although he's looked a little bit shaky in the last couple of games. I will be making it a priority to sign George Baldock to a new deal. I know Chris Wilder's a big fan. I think he encapsulates everything that we want in a blade. And yeah, George is a no-brainer for me, isn't he? So get George signed up to a new deal. He's still going to be our starting right wing back. Jayden Bogle, I know a lot of people are concerned because Jayden's out of contract at the end of the season. I believe, or I'm hearing, and I haven't had this confirmed, but he may be one that we've got an option on. Despite that, if we think George Baldock at 30-31 is not going to be our long-term solution, do we want to sit down with Jayden and think about a longer-term deal, a 3 or 4 year contract? I think it's worth having that conversation because we all see the potential in him. I think he's improved massively under Wilder already, but if he's not quite the finished article at Premier League level, he's certainly one that's going to help us if we're going between the divisions in terms of Championship and Premier League. So Jayden Bogle, a solid second option in what is, let's be right, one of our most luxury positions at right wing back. Jayden Bogle stays. I also want a new deal for Sai Sachdev, who is one of our most promising prospects at right wing back. I want to send him on loan to the EFL to get some real minutes under his belt. He's spent a long time in our youth team. He's not really experienced EFL football. So get him out there, get him playing 20 games for the rest of the season and see what he can do. Fingers crossed, all goes well and he comes back a better player in the summer. A lot of people are asking about Sam Curtis, right back / right centre half / right wing back from St. Pat's. 18 years old, winning awards in the League of Ireland. Absolutely fantastic prospect by all accounts. I haven't got much more detail on him than that other than he's very well thought of. Is he coming in? Is he not coming in? He is coming in. It's just a technicality, I believe, in terms of getting the final details over the line. It's very, very likely that he's a Sheffield United player before long, which is really exciting. And from what I understand, so much is the caliber of the kid. It's not expected that he's just going to be chucked into the under-21s and see how he goes. I'd be very surprised if he weren't, come next season, in the mix for being in the first team. That's how highly he's thought of. And I think we've got Keith Andrews to thank for that because the links to the Ireland squad and knowing a little bit about the prospects over in Ireland and things of that nature. So we talk a lot about what Nilly brings to the team in terms of how he helps Wilder out. I think Keith Andrews has been a shrewd move. And if this player turns out to be anything like what he's said to be, then I think we've done really well. Anel is a difficult one because he's not pulled up any trees in the Premier League. I'd say he's largely been disappointing, if I'm honest. He's still seen as a high-ticket asset for Sheffield United. And if we get a decent offer for Anel, would you consider it? Knowing what the Prince has said, that if we spend any money in this window, it's going to be added to the deficit that we have to raise and the funds that we have to raise next season in terms of player sales. Would you sell him now to get a bit of a transfer kitty under our belt? It then leaves a gaping hole because he's still a good player. Whether he's been playing well or not, I still think it leaves a gap in our team. So it's just whether you think if we can get 10, 15 million for Anel, can we bring in players of a better quality for that money and maybe get a couple of players into the squad for that price? So interesting food for thought on Anel, but in my team, he stays. Jack Robinson and Trusty, not going anywhere. They're in contract. I think Robinson's contracted to the end of next season. Trusty's signed a 4.5 year deal. So we're okay with those. Basham, I think dependent on Basham's injury, which looks a really bad one, I think we deregister him and open up a spot in the squad. I really hope that's not the case. I hope we can see him again before the end of the season, but it's not looking likely. John Egan, here murmurings that he's one that we've got an option on. He's someone that nobody's really stressing about, or nobody appears to be stressing about in terms of his contract, which makes me assume, and that's all it is, that we may have an option on John Egan. And if we have, we take it up because if we do go down, I still think he's got plenty to offer at Championship level, even if the Premier League looks like it might be a touch too far for him at the moment. Rees, Norrington, Davis needs a new contract. Get this boy tied down. I think he should be a priority in terms of those that we're trying to tie down. Get him signed up and get him in the first team. Get him back in. I'd like to see him at Gillingham at the weekend. I think we might do as well for a little bit of time. Huge upside, and let's just hope he can get somewhere near where he was before his injury. Now we come on to the problematic left wing back situation. And I know it was a little bit controversial in the last video that I was keeping Adam Davis. I think a lot of people wanted to sell him and get rid of him, but I'm keeping Adam Davis for the rest of the season so that we can send Jordi Amissa out. Well, now I'm doing exactly the same with Yasser Larousse. Yasser Larousse. He's staying. He's staying, and I never thought I'd say that, but listen, it's for me, unfortunately, it's the best of a bad bunch in terms of understudy to Rees Norrington Davis. So Rees stays as solid number one. Yasser stays as his backup because he's only here till the end of the season, and we sell Max Lowe while there's still some value in him, if at all. Luke Thomas, as has been widely reported today, will be sent back to Leicester and frees up that ever so important domestic loan spot. We've already said we might use it for Sam Johnston. If we bring Kakir in or another quality goalkeeper on loan, then it leaves us with another spot, doesn't it? Domestic loan spot alongside McAtee. So that's our existing defence and what we're going to do with it. Jilly Buyaboo, highly rated youth player. He's going out on loan as well to try and get some minutes, and fingers crossed he can make some progress while he's out on loan as well. Who do we bring in to strengthen? So far, we've not sold anybody. We've sent some kids out on loan. We've cancelled Thomas's loan contract. It's not really brought us any money in, has it? Particularly to say we've brought a new goalkeeper in as well, and we've paid for Victor Johansson. I'm sorry, Prince. We're going to have to get his hand in his pocket a little bit, I think. So who do we bring in? Who do we bring in to strengthen our defence? And I've heard a few names already. There's loads of different rumours going around. Our Ramble chat's full of Michael Keane from Everton, who's just got back in at Everton, so I'd be very surprised to see him come in. He would obviously be a loan, so we couldn't get Sam Johnston. We couldn't. I think we will use our loan, and I might be wrong, but I think we'd use our domestic Premier League loan on an attacker, if I'm honest. If it's not going to be a quality goalkeeper, i.e. Sam Johnston, I think we'll be using it on a quality attacker because they're the premium. They're the ones that cost the most money to buy. So if we're going to get a defender in, I think it's going to be either a foreign loan or cheaper, not cheap, but cheaper domestic player that we could buy potentially. And that limits our options. Can't honestly tell you about the foreign loan market for defenders. I'm not a one-man scouting network. I'm hoping United World will help us out with that. If you can find us another Anel, that'd be absolutely brilliant. All I can focus on is what longer-term prospects I think would suit our squad from the domestic market, because that's what we know, isn't it? So what do you think to these? First one I would want, and we talked about this in our squad rebuild at the beginning of the season, is Cash in at Derby. He's been circulated a lot. I don't think he cost an awful lot of money, but because we've got Trusty, we've got Robinson, we've got Rees, who can all play left centre-back. I just don't think it's a position we're going to fork out now. It's not a position that we need to strengthen. So even though there's a bit of a gem going in young Cash-in at Derby, I don't think we'll be spending the money to get him in, even though I think longer term that would be a really smart purchase. So Cash-in, although you're on the shortlist, you're not making the cut, my friend, and I wish you were. Some have mentioned Charlie Creswell at Leeds. I think he's a good young player. I don't think he's certainly not Premier League quality, and he's not getting in at Championship level. I don't think he's going to have the quality to make it, and he's certainly not somebody that I'd be forking out a fee on at this stage. I think he probably falls into the Thomas category in terms of decent young player, but if they can't get into their own squad at Championship level, why are we even considering a Premier League? So Charlie Creswell, honourable mention, but you're not getting in, pal. Joe Warl at Nottingham Forest. Now, I think we've missed the boat on this. Cooper froze him out at Forest. He was training with the kids. He's slightly started to come back into the fold at Forest now that Nuno's there. Having said that, they are now absolutely scrambling. They're not a skint club because the owner is absolutely minted. But hopefully with this FFP charge, they'll have a point deduction and they may well be in the Championship themselves next year. So who knows? Can't see him coming to United. So although I think he'd be a very good signing and probably the best fit of the bunch, he doesn't quite make it for me, unfortunately. He'd be a great central of the three, because I think we're going to stick with the three at the back. Egan, replacement / competition. They wouldn't want to sell to us anyway for a start. So I think it's it's a tricky one to manage. I've heard Callum Chambers mentioned, another good player. Obviously, we're at Arsenal for some time as well. Would play on the right side, probably a replacement for Anel if Anel were to go. I think that's probably the only chance we get him in, if I'm honest. He's going to be on big wages. I don't know whether he wants to drop down to the Championship, so you're probably looking at a loan, and we won't want to waste our domestic loan on that. So for that reason alone, Callum Chambers doesn't make it, but a very good shout. I really like Ryan Porteous at Watford, one that Wilder will know well from his time, his very brief stint there, but he will know if he's someone that can improve us. I don't know how much they'd want for him. I don't think they paid an awful lot for him. I know we were in the mix at one stage, but if you're paying anything less than 4 million quid, then I think you're doing well, and I think is worth dipping into and having a go at for that sort of value. Signed him from Hibs on a 4.5-year deal in January 23. So Ryan Porteous would be one that I'm definitely considering. Scotland international, very solid, proven himself, adapted well to the English game. I think he's one that's slightly under the radar at the minute and one that I want to be considering. One that may or may not be in the mix is Chris Mepham at Bournemouth. Now, they are still seeing us as rivals in the division. I don't think they're completely comfortable in their position at the moment, and nor should they be when Chrissy Wilder's in charge. So whether they'd be happy to do business with us, I'm not sure. From what I understand, well, Darren Smith mentioned him on Twitter, which is why people are going bananas. But I think the link originally comes from Alan Nill, coaching him at Wales when he was working with Rob Page at the Wales setup. So people are putting two and two together. He's out of favour at Bournemouth. He's always been a solid defender, certainly at Championship level. Not really played much in the Premier League, but could potentially bridge that gap. He'd certainly get first-team football with us, but I think that only happens again if Anel is sold. I'd like us to consider this one. I think he's a good player. 26, he's got a contract till June 2025. So it cost a little bit of money. I think he'd be a decent shout, to be honest, if we can get him for a reasonable price. The one I really like is Ronnie Edwards at Peterborough. Really calm, cool, composed, 20-year-old. I think his contract runs for another 18 months. So coming towards the end, whether they've got an option or not, I'm not entirely sure. That Darren McAntony is not daft. So I'm sure he protects his asset really well. From what I've read, they rejected a couple of offers in the summer, around 4 million quid for him. So not going to be the easiest of gets, don't get me wrong. But I think if we tempt him with a £5-6 million offer, even if we look at doing another loan back to them, he doesn't have to come to us immediately, but we're planning for the future here. Does that work for us? Does that work for them? As I've said, we will likely go for a loan player in this position unless we flip it. We flip it completely and we go for a experienced Premier League defender on a short-term contract. So that's our second domestic loan. And when we're strengthening our forward line, it's with someone from abroad, because that could happen too. But I just think they're at an absolute premium higher up the pitch. So we're more likely to get a Premier League level striker in. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But out of all those names I've mentioned, I think the most likely is probably Mepham from Bournemouth. I'd love to see us go for somebody like Porteous or Edwards. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Remember, this is all speculation. This is not like in the know type stuff. This is just us spitballing names and who would we like to see at Bramall Lane. So this is what I'd like to see. Get your names in below who you think, whether you think mine are absolute garbage or not. Let me know. I'm absolutely happy to have that as well. Thank you again to everybody that's liked, commented and subscribed. If you do enjoy what we're doing, please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to support that extra bit more, you can become a Rambler on YouTube, or you can go that extra step further and support us on Patreon. All the links are down below, and everybody's support is very much appreciated. There's big things coming for this channel, and I'm very excited about it in 2024. Thank you for everybody that's joined us on the journey so far. But for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blades! Ramble on!